Hey guys, how's it going? Well, I know that I had promised some of you over Twitter and Facebook that today's video would be a COD vs COD episode, and specifically the COD vs COD Reloaded AK-47 episode, which I'm incredibly excited about. But I've been playing Titanfall on the 360 for the entire week, and I thought that it was my duty to report the status of the game, how I think it runs on the 360, and whether you guys should think about purchasing it. So this is mainly going to be focused on the game's performance on the 360. I'm also going to review it to a certain degree, but I'm sure you guys have seen this game reviewed a million times already. And like everybody says, it is almost exactly the same as the Xbox One and PC variants in terms of how it plays. So I'm going to be covering how it looks visually, its technical performance, and all the features, whether they've made it into the final game, and whether the whole game feels like it's working or not. And I'll do a small reviewy bit towards the end of the video. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to address the elephant in the room straight away, and that is, what does it look like on 360? Now, it's actually pretty hard to gauge from YouTube videos and videos on the internet the differences between the PC, Xbox One, and 360. And I can hear some of you already grumbling and saying, no, it's very obvious. You can see the differences quite clearly. You're a moron. But truth be told, the YouTube videos run at 30 frames per second, so you can't really see the frame advantage from PC versus 360 or Xbox One, and even textures and stuff like that. It's very difficult to tell the difference. Now, obviously, if you've been playing on the Xbox One or PC, you're going to look at this footage and you're going to be like, well, the lighting isn't as good and the textures are muddy and blah blah blah. And yeah, to a certain degree, yes, that is very true. If you were to compare them side by side, you would notice that the textures are quite flat, and often that you'll get nasty texture popping as well. It's not really that noticeable. Every now and then when you jump into a Titan, you'll see that one of the inside textures or even the texture on the outside isn't there, and you'll just get like a solid block of color. But the game moves so quickly that, to be honest, you don't really notice it. So strangely, I am always about visual fidelity and graphics and that sort of stuff, but in Titanfall, because the gameplay is so fast, you don't really notice. And the graphics for a 360 game are pretty good. I mean, it's definitely not the best looking shooter on the platform by quite some margin. I mean, you've got games like Crysis and even Battlefield and Call of Duty do look sharper in a lot of areas, but considering what this game is doing and how smoothly it runs, the visual fidelity is pretty good. It actually has moments where it does look really impressive. I mean, the scale is quite huge and impressive. You've got lots of players on the screen, and when there's 3 or 4 Titans all running around and there are explosions going off everywhere, it still has that wow factor, and that's what we're after. Now, as far as all the features of the PC and Xbox One versions, as far as I know, and from everything that I've read, it has the same everything. It's got all the same modes and all the same weapons, which, to be honest, isn't very much. But it has all the same bots as far as I know as well, so it definitely doesn't feel like it's been stripped back. I mean, if you've played Battlefield 3 on 360 or PS3, you knew that the maps were slightly smaller, there was a smaller player count, and it just kind of felt like the game had been designed for the PC and it was sort of missing those features on console. Titanfall on 360 doesn't feel like that. It does feel like the full game. It doesn't feel like anything's been stripped back or removed just to make it run this platform, so that's definitely a plus. So I've talked a little bit about how it looks from a texture standpoint and a visual fidelity standpoint, but I think you're wondering, how well does it run? Like I said, even with 3 or 4 Titans on screen, it seems to run pretty smooth. There's only been a few occasions where I've noticed slowdown, and even then it's only when a huge amount of stuff is going on, and it doesn't really take you out at the moment. It's not that annoying. I mean, obviously if there was gigantic frame rate dips, you might have a problem with it, or if it was interrupting the gameplay, if it was jarring, but it never gets to that point. It's always quite minimal. Now, on that topic, you can actually lock the frame rate. I believe the frame rate normally will be anywhere between 30 frames up to somewhere between the mid-40s. Now, there is an option in the menu so that you can lock it to, it says 30 Hertz, but from what everybody is saying is that you can lock it, this actually means that you're locking it to 30 frames per second. Now, the gameplay that you're watching is locked on 30 frames per second. Not that you'd know, because it's YouTube and it's locked to 30 frames per second anyway, but I found that when it's locked to 30 frames per second, it doesn't look quite as smooth, but it does reduce a fair amount of screen tearing. Now, if you're not familiar with screen tearing, that's when the screen looks like it literally splits in half, and that can be quite jarring. And that does happen a lot if you don't have the frame rate locked in, which, you know, is not great, and really for me is a big negative. But having said that, I've noticed a lot of that in the Xbox One version as well, and that was one of the reasons why I was a bit apprehensive of buying an Xbox One for Titanfall, as I'd seen a lot of screen tearing in the gameplay that I've seen posted on YouTube and other places around the internet. So the screen tearing can be remedied somewhat on the 360. I mean, it's not 60 frames per second, it's only 30 frames per second. So if that's a big deal for you, that might be a bit of a deal breaker. For me, I'm quite happy playing games like Battlefield, where I think it is only 30 frames per second. So yeah, in that respect, for me, it's not a big deal, and I can remove the screen tearing by, you know, changing one little option. So it's definitely nice that the developers stuck that in there, noting that that would be a problem with the visuals. Now, the biggest problem with this game so far has got absolutely nothing to do with the game itself or, you know, the port. I think the port is amazing. The biggest problem with Titanfall on the 360 is lag. And now, I know this is a problem that has plagued first-person shooters since first-person shooters went online, basically, and it's something that people complain about, the, you know, Treyarch Call of Duty games, and even the Infinity Ward Call of Duty games. Having even a little bit of lag makes games very, very difficult to do well in. I've got my internet connection set up, so I've got a static IP and an open NAT type. I've got my consoles wired into the router so that I've got no latency. I use a wired control pad. You know, I'm very fastidious about my connection and trying to remove any kind of latency that I can. And Titanfall on 360 in Australia has been appalling. I bought the game a week ago, and to this date, I have never played a game in which I've had more than 2 bars of connection. So you get 4 in total, and 2 is the absolute maximum that I've had. Now, I know that some of you are probably thinking, but that's weird. This game is supposed to have dedicated servers, and it does, but here's the catch. The dedicated servers, up until this point at least, have been located in, the closest one is Southeast Asia. Now, Titanfall runs on the Microsoft Azure network, and I've played games running on American servers, on the east side, and all over, basically, all over the world, and the connection has been awful. Like, I think when I'm running on the Southeast Asian servers, I get like 150 millisecond ping, and if I'm running on the US servers, it can be like 300 ping. It's, yeah, I mean, that's, to me, that's virtually unplayable. And at one point last week, I was almost going to take the game back because I was just like, you can't play this way. I feel like I'm playing against agents from the Matrix. You would unload an entire clip into someone for no bullets to connect, no hit markers, and they would down you instantly. It was just ridiculous. I did a bit of research and found out that there were some local servers in Australia that were sort of in a beta phase, and they're still kind of testing those, and I only last night was able to connect to an Australian server, and the ping, according to the list, was an 18 millisecond ping, which sounds amazing, but my connection was still only a 2-bar. So in this game, my connection was a 2-bar, but it did seem to make a big difference. And I think this is the best game that I've captured so far, which is pretty sad because it's not all that great. So it looks like things are slowly getting better. It looks like the EA and Respawn are trying to get things done in Australia. Zampella actually was the one who tweeted about the state of their servers and that Australia was going to get dedicated servers. So things are hopefully looking up. So just quickly, I'm going to talk about the game itself. Obviously, there's a lot of reviews on the internet and everybody is praising it. And the general consensus is it's incredibly fun, but it's also incredibly light on content. And I would have to agree. There's just not enough here for a full price game. I don't care about campaign. That's fine. Don't add the campaign. The lack of weapons is starting to annoy me because I've almost unlocked everything and there's only a couple of weapons which I enjoy using. And also the lack of modes is a little bit disappointing as well, but hopefully they'll add some more in the future with DLC. A lot of people say this is a COD killer, and for me it's not a COD killer, it's a very different game. I mean, it is almost exactly the same game. It's built by a lot of the original Call of Duty developers, but it is a different game in terms of the way it plays. There's no kill streaks, and it is kind of different in that respect. And for me, Call of Duty still has that one-man army. You get to see how many people you killed at the end of the game, where Titanfall is a bit sort of, the scoreboard's a bit scattered at the end. You have pilot kills and Titan kills and grunts and stuff like that as well, which, I don't know, like, I'm kind of undecided about the bots. I just feel like they're cannon fodder and they're only there for the easy players. I would prefer if it was twice as many players and no computer controlled bots at all. I guess maybe I'd have to play that to see how it would work and whether that would work, but yeah. Okay, so here's the verdict. I am enjoying the game. I think it runs well. I think when the servers in Australia improve, it's going to be really awesome. So ultimately, is this game worth buying on 360? I would give it an enthusiastic thumbs up and say, yeah, run out and spend whatever it is in the country that you live in on this game. If you enjoy your first-person shooters, it's definitely a hell of a lot of fun. If you're in Australia, I would just say be a little bit apprehensive and patient about the whole server thing, but it should get better, and hopefully we'll be playing on more than 2 bars connection in the future. But anyway, that is a huge long rant by me. I hope it was informative. I hope it was helpful. If you guys have got any other questions for me at all, just leave it in the comment section below, and I will try and read and answer as many as I possibly can. But yeah, anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you later.